Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I'm Linda Mitchell, and I am here today with Petra Kolber. I'm super excited to have her on. I have to tell you a little backstory. As a group fitness coordinator for over 25 years, I started taking Petra's classes way back. I mean, way back, you guys. I go way back to leg warmers and thongs, okay? And at first, I was in the back, and then I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff is like dope. I have to get in the front row because I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to miss a move or a trick, because basically I taught step 24/7. And I had a lot of women that would depend on me for entertainment as well as their fitness. So I had to, I wanted to do tricks off my stuff. I wanted to do whatever it took because I was a perfectionist and I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best. So this is a perfect topic for us today. Not only was she front and center stage then, but Petra Kolber is front and center stage now with her book, The Perfection, say it again, The Perfection.
Detox.
Yes, The Perfection Detox. I wanted to say perfectionist because that was just the word.
No, a lot of people do, but that's completely fine.
I wanted to say it so bad. The Perfection Detox, which we all need. We all need to release ourselves from the inner critic inside. So I'm super excited, you guys, to introduce her. But first, I just want to tell you a little bit more about her other than my backstory. Petra Kolber is an internationally recognized and renowned fitness expert and wellness leader who is known throughout the industry as a crusader for change and a beacon of authentic happiness. In 25 years in the fitness world, she has starred and choreographed in over 60 award-winning videos and fitness programs and has spoken live to thousands of motivated followers. As a national workshop leader and keynote speaker, she inspires people around the globe to stand up for their lives and live profoundly from their hearts. She has been a consultant and contributor to many national fitness magazines, and she has been named Fitness Crusader of the Year by Health Magazine. She has been the face and voice of leading food and fitness companies such as Reebok, Spry Living, Yes Fitness Music, and California Walnuts. As a two-time cancer survivor, she is passionate about waking people up to the precious gift of time. Her mission is to inspire people to move more and fear less, so they can stretch their dreams, strengthen their courage muscle, and build an inspired life full of joy and gratitude. Welcome, Petra, to the show.
Well, that's quite an introduction. Thank you. Can we just end now? And mic drop and show is done. Thank you.
Well, you've accomplished so much. And I did not realize that. I knew you had breast cancer, but I did not realize you were a two-time cancer survivor.
Yeah, it actually wasn't breast cancer, Linda. I had melanoma.
Oh, okay.
And then I had Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so
I don't know why I thought it was breast. Okay.
Yeah, no, and I think when people hear of women having cancer, that's the first one we go to.
Right.
But yeah, no, I luckily, knock on wood, it's been a long time. It's been over 20 years. So I would like to say at this point, your doctors never do, that I'm cancer-free, but they still say you're in remission. So yeah, and it does remind us of the precious gift of this incredible body that we are in, that we often speak so unkindly to, especially when we're working out or in front of a mirror at the gym. And so if we can just remember, I like to invite us to consider the extraordinary in the ordinary of days, so that you don't need a cancer diagnosis, a sudden loss of a loved one, or something tragic to happen. So just be in love with you, who you are, and the world and the life that you're creating.
Wow. And as a cancer survivor, you were standing up in front of thousands of people, and that kind of threw a wrench into being perfect, I'm sure. Right? Or even maybe wanting to be perfect. How did having cancer affect you in that way?
That's a great question, Linda. Actually, you know what? I probably did my best, most authentic, heart-to-heart teaching during that time, because I had a bald head. I had put on maybe 20 pounds from the steroids.
Right.
But I remember what was so weird. I would still teach. I'd have chemo on Monday, and I taught a step class. It was the Reebok Sports Club in the day. It's now Equinox, Tuesday and Thursday mornings. And one of the members was Luther Vandross. And he would come with his backup dancers. And
oh my gosh.
Oh, it's crazy. It was like church. He was the mayor of the step class. He would walk around to all the new people and say, "My name's Luther." And they're like, and he would like show them like what a basic is and a repeater. He was a dream. And I mean, I was heavier. I had no hair. I'd wear like a bandana at the time because it was kind of in. My classes were packed because I had nothing to lose. I was more authentic. I had more joy. I got so much out of that hour.
Oh, you're making me want to cry.
Yeah, well, it was my freedom. It was an hour
That's
when
amazing.
I didn't have to worry about the doctors. I didn't.
Wow.
And the life that I thought we all knew, this
Right.
life that we think we have figured out, that was the 1 hour where I felt a little bit more in control. I had these people, we had this music, we had this choreography, and it just took me away from the day-to-day needle pricks and chemo. And yeah, so I'd say actually during that time, Linda, I did some of my best living. And I like to think that I carry a lot of that still with me. But as you go further out from your clean bill of health, you tend to forget, the gift of just this vessel that allows us to move into this life of our dreams.
Well, and as, a perfectionist society, I mean, and just like everything is going to be bigger, better, faster, and we're afraid to age, and there's social media coming out, and, you were on stage in front of people. When you're in front of people, maybe you're a school teacher, maybe you have to do performances or whatever, when you're always front and center stage, or you feel like you are, and as women we feel like we're being judged 24/7, it's hard to free yourself from the idea that you have to be perfect.
Well, yeah, I think you said that, we feel judged by women.
Yeah.
The harshest judge we will ever have is ourselves. And, I think all of us now, unfortunately or fortunately, we can look at it two ways. We have this incredible thing called technology. You and I are connecting across the miles in real time. You're reaching out to your Facebook community in real time. That's just wonderful. And I heard Gary Vaynerchuk say something really good, because I was a little like anti-technology, like, oh my gosh, we're losing ourselves. And he goes, look, he held up his phone, goes, this does not have an opinion. You have to decide how you want to use it. So when we can use technology for good and empower other people and do it for the good of, share positive messages like you do with your podcast and all of the great work you're doing, Linda. But yet we also have to be super mindful of how we use it ourselves. Are we using, can we go on and celebrate other women, in particular their accomplishments and their success, or do we unwittingly then compare our behind the scenes to their, highlight reel? And so it's such a tricky world that we live in right now, where whether you are up front on center in front of one person, 10 people, 1,000 people, how do you show up all of yourself, the good, the not so good, and the awful, and not allow the praise to get to your head? I heard Quincy Jones say this. I love this. When things are going great, do not let the praise go to your head. And then also, gosh, there are going to be people there that judge you. But if you're making an impact, you're going to have people commenting on you. And how do you not let the critics go to your heart? And your worst critic, your inner critic.
Oh, yeah.
Hello. And you had mentioned getting older. I mean, I talk about we all have ers. What's your I should be smarter. I should be thinner. I should be fitter. Whereas in the heyday of my fitness career, Linda, it was I should be thinner, leaner, smarter, blah, blah. Now, as I
Better.
better. Well, everything's better. Yeah. But now as I'm moving into my career as a speaker and an author, I'm like, I'm pivoting at the age of, I just had my 55th birthday. Now, like you'd said, it's like, maybe I should be younger. No one's telling me this, but my inner critic goes, well, you got this figured out. Let's give you something else to worry about. So, oh my gosh, crazy.
I love
crazy
that.
Man.
I love that. I mean, it's true. We all beat ourselves up about what we're not or what we think we should be. Why do you think it's so important to us to be perfect?
Well, I think for maybe some of your listeners, Linda, they might say, well, I don't have this problem. But it can show up in different ways. Where there's like this idea of my confidence catching up to my career, or this idea of enoughness. This idea that I'm not this enough, that enough, young enough, old enough, pretty enough, thin enough,
smart enough, funny enough. Yeah.
Exactly, sexy enough. It's all around this idea of, well, bottom line is, we believe what the media sells us. And if we look at the images, it's pretty perfect. And even on the Instagram, pretty perfect. Facebook, pretty perfect. So there's this innate organic part of ourselves that will want to compare ourselves to what we see in the world. And the strongest part of our brain, I spoke about this when we met at BlogFest, is our negativity bias. Our brain has is primed to focus on what's wrong versus what's right. And when we're seeing all these perfect images across our screen, even if intellectually we know, well, that's been Photoshopped, that's Instagram filter number 3, which I particularly like, our heart has a hard time separating the who we really are to the who we project out into the world. And it's to also say there's nothing wrong in wanting to be excellent. There's nothing wrong in wanting to strive to be the best that you can be. Yet, if perfect has become the basement level, if it has to be perfect to ship it out, if we have to look perfect before we get in front of the camera, I'll be honest, Linda, this is the first live video I've done around the book in a while.
Right.
If you stop me from the neck down, I have shorts on because it's hot here, but I'm like, oh my God, I got to put the makeup on. I got to get the lighting a little better, so there is this idea of but there's a difference between now I want to present my best self, but I'm not going to spend like an extra 2 hours figuring out everything to make it flawless. When we do that, we're wasting precious time, what we could be putting into the impact in the world. And when I find myself doing that, Linda, going, I have to look a certain way, and I begin to make that way perfect versus showing up as the best I can on this particular day, what I've done is I've stopped making my work about my audience. I've started making it about me. And in those moments, I just need to go, you know what? It really isn't about what I look like. If I can share one nugget, one sentence, one idea that you and I maybe come up with together in conversation that makes someone feel less alone, that's an excellent, perfect day.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I know like sometimes when you're on social media, it can be like, why don't I have more followers? Why don't I have more likes? Why isn't anybody commenting? And really it should be more, not self-focused, but more on what am I doing for my listeners? How am I serving the people out there? How am I making, like for as a, being a thought leader, how am I presenting thoughts that help change people's lives? And what am I providing versus what is, in it for me, right?
And there's that balance. You want quality. You do quality work. You work so hard at what you're delivering to your audience, and that's good. I mean, that's the thing about myself too. I'll double, triple check. I'll still make mistakes. I made one yesterday with my email list. I sent out the completely wrong code. But in the past, that would have completely knocked me sideways. Out of I made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes, but in my perfectionistic life, I would have viewed that, Linda, as like, oh my God, I am the mistake. See, I am stupid. I should know better. It's just like, oh my God. So it's separating, it's allowing us that space to do great work, but yet separate who we are from what we do. Whatever that, and if your role is being a mom, this is really important because your young daughters and sons are looking to you, and they might not listen to you, but they're sure going to hear what you say to yourself when you're not even aware that.
Yeah, you're a role model.
Yeah.
Young daughters. I mean, boys is too, but your daughters, I mean, as mothers, I mean, they are paying attention to what you say to yourself. And you have to think about what you want them saying to themselves and feeling about themselves by how you are showing up, right?
Yeah, I just saw I was so blessed. My dear friend Lisa took me for my birthday to see Mean Girls. And I'm like, oh my gosh, whether you're 8, 18, 38, 58, 70, we all have these cliques. And even, it was so funny, my friend's mother just recently moved into assisted living. And she says, even at 75, they've got their cliques of who's going to play bingo and who's going to play cards. And so it's this whole idea of how can we just all be human beings and, oh my God, celebrate each other. And I just think until we fully can make peace with our own selves, we are never going to be at peace with how we try and present ourselves in the world. And look, I wrote a book on this. I've studied this work. It's still not easy to do. But when we can become aware, Linda, of the thoughts, the self-judgment, we can then go, oh, that's interesting. Why am I speaking to myself? And even without judgment, I used to, instead of labeling it, well, there's another negative thought. That's good. That's bad. How can I go through the lens of curiosity? That's interesting. Why am I beating myself up today? And then we can sit with it without the judgment and look underneath to what's really going on. And then, you know, with love and self-acceptance and recognizing we're human, we're going to have these moments. We can then go a reboot, take a breath, come back to the present, and then do another do-over for that day.
Well, I really love that. I love that so much. And it just makes me think too, like, I think we're more critical of others when we're critical of ourselves. So we have to work on that inner critic. And the inner critic you hear in your head, such as right now, I have an injury and I've, pretty much shredded my hamstring. And I'm still trying, I'm still trying to train until I can have surgery. And, I went from being able to run miles and miles amazingly to having to really concentrate and focus to make sure I'm probably engaging my foot as it lands, as I'm running. Like, is it, I know it looks weird. I know it does.
Okay, should you be running with?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that. My doctor told me to go ahead and train. If I break it, he'll fix it, and let pain be my guide. So I'm not really in pain.
But I'm curious because you said your inner critic is coming up. What the heck is she saying? Because
okay. So this is what I want to say. Okay, so because I recognized that, I knew we were going to talk today. The inner critic was kind of criticizing, the way I was running. I went somewhere out of my comfort zone, and I went to run Cincinnati at Smalley Park, the Ohio River Trail. I've never done it. I think it was just, I'm feeling, as a fitness person, I'm missing being able to do what I want to do. And maybe it was just to prove to myself I could still do it, I think. So I just took off and I was running, and the inner critic inside was, well, what if people are watching you run? Because you're a fitness person. You're supposed, I coach running. You're supposed to run correctly. And right now I'm just running any way I can. And at a slow pace, just to be, I'm not trying to run full out. So this judgment came up within myself. And then I felt like I was going to get this judgment from other people. So not only did I have my own inner critic, but I had their critic in my head.
It probably was not even there. They'll probably look at you going, oh, because even at your worst running, trust me, Linda, you're crushing it. And it's so interesting that you say this, because here's the thing about perfection, or that inner critic. She only resides when our brain is comparing our past or our future. So you are comparing the Linda of the perfect hamstring to the Linda who's really injured. Like if you worked with this, and I'm just like, if you don't mind me using this as an example, I think this is what we do in fitness too, especially as we get older. I see a lot of people training as they're doing the same workouts as they did in their 30s, in their 50s. Right. Now, if we were really listening to our body and going, hey, body, what do you need to do today? It's highly unlikely that if it's your 5th day of HIIT training, your body's actually going, yeah, I need more HIIT training. Probably not. But when we can, through the lens of curiosity, go, what does my body need today versus what was I doing with the perfect hamstring? Or what was I doing 30 years ago? Or,
right.
You know, what do we need to, and it might be interesting because you are a coach, maybe if we put the curiosity lens on it, oh, this is how it feels to be in a body that's injured.
Oh, it's totally changed me 100% in that regard.
Give you, instead of taking away, it's giving you more empathy, more compassion, more understanding. And maybe this had to happen. I hate to say that, because I don't think any injury is for a reason. Like, why did this happen? No, you just shredded your hamstring because you were training hard, and it's going to happen. But if we can say, okay, what can I take from this really situation to make, what can I learn from it? And as you know, because your body craves that movement, the adrenaline, and it's going to feel a little depressed in a way.
Oh, when I wasn't moving, I was getting so depressed. So then I was like, well, the doctor says I can move, so I feel better moving. It's just not going to be as pretty as it was before.
Yeah.
And in my head, I said to myself, after the inner critic and the other, whatever.
They finally got out of the way.
Yeah, I got out of the way. I said, well, if people are watching, I'm going to give them a show. It was just like entertainment, I guess. And people, they do notice, because one girl in boot camp, it's probably because I ran 8 miles yesterday, and then I taught a boot camp.
I'm not going to say a word.
Yeah.
With a shredded hamstring. Right.
Yes. And then she says to me, what, I noticed you were compensating. So I am. I had to let go and say, yes, I am totally compensating. And when I felt, I was like, I think I'm done for the night. Like, I would have never, I'm a fitness competitor. You've got to understand. I am 55 as you are, and I am a driver. So I had to completely be like, you know what? We're done for the night. No more. We're done. And let go of it, because it is perfectionism.
Well, I think this is a really important conversation to have, Linda, because of the work that you do, and a lot of your listeners have come to you through fitness.
Right.
And I had 30 years in this industry, and I think we have done a lot of good. And I also think we have done a lot of damage, because we made this what we look like, how we move, if we're running perfectly, our definition of success, where in reality, what your great power is, Linda, is motivating other women to be the best they can be. You are a change catalyst. You're a transformation expert. And so we need your body to be strong, vital, healthy, but this isn't the success. This is just the vehicle that is your vehicle to be able to share that message. And I know myself for many years, and many of the incredible the thought leaders, top people in this space have dealt with this issue of like, what happens when I get older? What happens when I get injured? Because we haven't allowed room to consider that our fitness is a piece of our life.
Right.
It's the piece that keeps us healthy and vibrant. And I think not your crowd, but I think why we have not reached many that need us is because how the hell, look, even you on your worst day, you're a hero, you're a superwoman. So even most people are going to look at you and go, yeah, great. There's no way. We forget what most people need. And that is just from sitting to standing, from standing to walking walking faster, to walking faster to walk, run. And so I think if you, I mean, I'm so sorry you got injured, but also look at the height. You're an athlete. And so athletes are going to get injured. I mean, that's the norm. And, you know, so it's interesting for us as women, especially, check in with yourself. Is your fitness defining who you are? Is your nutrition defining who you are? And if it is, I would invite you to ease up and go, how is this fitting into all of my life? My relationship with my self-care, my relationship at work, my relationship with my loved ones, my relationship with my friends, with my family. Does it leave room? I know this word balance is bullshit, you know, there's no such thing as balance, but does it allow room for other things to come into my life? And if I have a bad day, I don't show up, I don't crush my workout, am I suddenly then defining that as a bad day, that I'm suddenly like a loser, that I'm losing my edge? Because this black and white, like I'm running or I'm not, I'm fit or I'm fat, I'm this or I'm that. Listen, I lived it for many years, and you still need to be excellent and mind your health, but at what cost? Just check in with what's the scale telling you on this.
And I hear you there. I do 100%. And as this injury has come up, I had, and I am older, I will be 56 soon. I had to start asking myself questions like, well, how much, you know, like with the fitness, it was totally an identity, right? And movement and who I am. But I am more than that. I am more than that. And I had to start thinking, how did this happen for me instead of to me? And start finding other ways to channel my positivity, the motivation, what I'm going to do when I'm down, and not when we have the surgery. It's going to be way worse than now, because I'm going to be in a harness and for 6 weeks and unable to work out, and then gradually coming back at 3 months to a light jog. And so
that's going to be so interesting and useful to document and share that with your listeners and your followers. Because here's the thing, Linda, I look at you, we met at Blogfest, you walk into a room, you're like this bowl of light. And then I look at the pictures of you competing online. It's unbelievable. But again, like I said before, that's hard for people to relate to. But when you're coming back from an injury, like, oh, I've been there. And, you know, a really dear friend of mine, Jill Miller, and she does the role model. She, you know, she had a full-on hip replacement recently. And she explored how this changed her relationship to exercise. And I'm so sorry, because I have chronic hamstring hip stuff going on all the time. And I just, like I said, I kind of work around it. I roll, I tweak, I do yoga, then I don't do yoga. But this is big for you, especially with your competition. I totally get that. And I don't believe anything has to happen, but I think it's going to be interesting what you cultivate and what other programs you come up with and other ways of reaching your listeners during these 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, I have totally embraced the struggle 100%. And I am documenting all of it daily and learning so many lessons. And I can tell you right now, my coaching has already changed 100%. And I think it's not what happens to you, because stuff's going to happen to all of us. Yes, this is an obstacle. And so it's just learning how to deal with the challenge and, you know, work through it. And, you know, I think mindset is everything. So I had to let go of the perfectionist in me and be okay with the injured me.
Yeah, and if you don't do that, you're not gonna heal well, because you're spending all this energy. The perfectionist goes, well, I used to be this.
Right.
That's
right.
I used to be was a second ago. What are we dealing with right now that and look, I get moments like this all the time. Like, well, I used to be this. And if I'd only knew now what I knew then with the body that I used to have. Oh, it's exhausting. But when we can be aware of it, it's like, oh, if I'm going through this, you're going through this, guaranteed 80-90% of the people listening also have moments of going through this. And when we can recognize that we are much more alike in our struggles than our successes, that's where the great connection happens.
And instead of disconnecting, you feel like okay, in your head, maybe you feel less than, or because you're not the same as you were. And what I found is you're more than you're more than you thought you were. You're stronger than you think you are, and people embrace you more when you're just real and and not perfect.
Yeah, I always say we connect through our cracks. I guarantee that I have people reaching out to you, because also there's this idea of less than who I was. But again, what does strength mean? Is it just strength of the body? Now you look at your resilience, your grit, your mindset to get through the next 3 months. What does flexibility mean? Is it just our body, or is it how can I be flexible in my training to work with my injury versus push against it?
Right.
And then, the cardio aspect, it's so interesting to me. We can talk about cardio, flexibility, strength training as it defines the body.
Right.
But what about impacting our life? How do we strengthen our courage? How do we stretch our dreams? How do we strengthen our resilience, our grit? And the body is the vessel. And again, and it's hard. Look, I was a dancer, Linda. My entire life this was who I was. This was my identity. And I was thinking to myself the other day, I went for a walk, and I really, man, I can beat myself up like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, I wonder if because I had so many years where my body was my vehicle, was my identity, where our inner critics are actually worse than most. And I think in the gym, and whether you're doing Zumba or CrossFit or whatever, really be mindful that it's always from a place of celebrating your body versus I wish my body was 10 pounds, lighter. I wish I was 3 sizes skinnier. I wish I was 10 years younger. Let's make sure that we move from a place of celebration of who we are today versus who we wish we were tomorrow, or who we are craving or kind of grieving who we were of a decade.
Right, because as we age 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, if we're still thinking back to what we were when we were 20, we certainly cannot embrace the person we are today.
Nope.
So you have to move on and embrace the person you are now.
Because you're awesome.
Yes, you guys all rock. And I really am loving this conversation, because I think it's such an important conversation for women to have. Now, when did you realize that perfectionism had become a problem for you? And what was your wake-up call to kind of make you realize this?
It's a great question, because, for many of us, and a lot of the women I work with, Linda, they go, well, perfect, it's actually working in my favor. And if it is, awesome. But I say perfect is only a word until you attach an emotion to it. And what I had done without realizing it, as my fitness career grew, and I suddenly was called a fitness expert. Because in my childhood, I had often been told, you're not smart enough, you're not this enough. I had taken on this idea, a false one, but my heart didn't know, that I was kind of never smart enough. So as my career began to explode, and I was then the fitness expert, I put on this false idea that I needed to look perfect, say the perfect thing, do the perfect workout. And for me, it's like, when did perfect stop making my world bigger, and when did my world start becoming smaller? And I say the universe throws you a pebble, a rock, and then you'll run into a brick wall. So my brick wall moment was, because I viewed, what happened is, because I got so in this box around being perfect, your body is going to take that on as stress. So I started having anxiety attacks. And because that wasn't perfect, I put them into a box and didn't look at them. Anything you don't own would eventually own you. So the anxiety grew to panic. So I had full-on panic attacks. And while I could hide a lot of my symptoms, like tightness in my chest and a racing heart. Like if I was to have a panic attack right in front of your audience right now, oops, I just would table, it would suddenly look like I had run a marathon. I would be drenched in sweat. This shirt would be changing colors in front of us. So that's highly embarrassing. And to me, it was just another sign of how imperfect I was. So I started to turn down work. But again, because I knew my choices weren't in alignment with my best self, put them into a box. So my wall moment came. I got a phone call from CBS early morning news show. It was around the holidays, 2005. And it was like, New Year's resolution time, and they were
right, the perfect time.
How to get fit in 5 seconds and get a six-pack in 6 minutes. And so they said, Petra, we'd love to have you on the show. And because I suddenly had this idea of like, I'm going to have a panic attack, I went, oh, thank you so much, but I'm already booked that day. And I put the phone down.
Oh, wow.
Completely wide open. My calendar couldn't have been more empty. But something happened that day, Linda. My heart went, enough. And before my brain had time to shut my heart down, picked up the phone and said, you know what? I've moved my schedule around and I'll make it to your show. And here's my brick wall moment. Petra, we are so excited to get you on the show. We've been trying to get you on for 2 years. And I was like, for 2 years, Linda, I've been turning down the CBS Early Show, The View, the Today Show, because I was afraid of not being perfect. And I did the work. I had 2 weeks to get ready. So I worked with a therapist to like be able to manage my anxiety. Two weeks later, I went on into a fitness segment about New Year's resolutions, how to get in shape. Was it perfect? No. But it was good enough that for the next 2 years, I was their regular fitness expert. And at that moment, what I realized was when I eased up, their audience, they want someone who knows what they're talking about. But if I'm just so aloof and everything is so perfect, people actually disconnect from you. The very people I wanted to serve.
Oh, this is so true. That right there is so true. Like you think that, like as a role model or as somebody like, both of us teaching fitness, you think that the more perfect you are, the better class you teach, the better you look, the more that people are going to connect to you. But it was probably when you became more real and said, I have anxiety attacks, that people probably.
Yeah. And that's really interesting. And what had happened is I started talking, like in the past, I did step, I did, la, 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 la. And anyone that knows me, now, remind me to tell you, because what I'm doing this Friday in Canada, I am teaching step. Again, I actually bought a pair of leg warmers. It's the 25th anniversary. So when we leave, I'm going to be getting off and practicing my 32 counts. But if you knew me in the past, if I had a step presentation, I would be locked up in my room for 5 hours ahead of time. I wouldn't be going for dinners. I wouldn't be going out with friends because I was so nervous of making a mistake. But what happened is I started doing a lot more speaking. And there's always like 10 tips to success, 100 ways to be the best fitness presenter, blah, blah, blah. So I was doing this one particular talk and somewhere I went off topic and I mentioned my anxiety. And I felt the whole room kind of lean in. I was like, and so I thought either I can go with my perfect prepared talk or I can go and follow this road. So I just kind of began to talk about this for like 5-10 minutes. After I used to speak, Linda, maybe I'd have a couple of people waiting to say hi, whatever. There was a line of women out that door waiting to ask me, you too have anxiety? Oh my God, you made me feel, knowing that Petra Kolber has anxiety, we connected. They could relate to me.
Because you were just so real. And, that's the thing is, if you're so perfect that nobody can measure up to you, they don't relate.
They might look at you like, oh, that's very inspirational, aspirational, but do they actually connect to you on a deep, meaningful level? No. And again, I used to say we connect in our cracks. And now I say we connect in our cracks, but we don't want to hang out there. Like you can have empathy, for your people that might have injuries down the road, but they also then want to know, well, oh, Linda had this injury, but this is what Linda's protocol is to do to get better. So we connect in our cracks, but as a thought leader, they want us to know, to trust that we now have the methodology, the protocols to get them out of the cracks, back to their best self. Yeah.
Now, how do you deal with this perfection in your own life? How do you deal with it?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know if it ever goes away fully, because that negative part of our brain is so strong. And it's just part of it's the reptilian brain. It's the piece that lights up when fight, flight, or freeze. We're always on high alert anyway with the world that we live in, from technology, the dings, the interrupts. We're already in a kind of a state of low simmer, which our brain and our inner critic, oh my God, that's her launch pad. She's like, oh, Petra's already a little anxious. I could just get in really quickly. So I think there's three parts to it, Linda. The first part is just noticing, because this inner critic, this idea of not enoughness, unfortunately for many people, has become such a part of our inner dialogue, we don't even realize it's there. So it's having pause, it's noticing how we talk to ourselves. And an interesting idea for some of your listeners or viewers can go, Ellen Langer, she's a psychologist out of Harvard. She goes, imagine that for 24 hours you have a thought bubble attached to your head. And everyone can see the thoughts you have about yourself.
Oh my gosh.
Well, exactly. Yourself and the world around you.
You'd be so good.
I mean, just that makes you go, oh.
You'd be more positive.
If you spoke to yourself, if you spoke to your best friend in the way you speak to yourself, would you have any friends? It's just this simple, with curiosity, no judgment, going, maybe there's a different way of being. Maybe, and then it's like the second part of that is going, when you speak to yourself, when you have a thought about how you're showing up in your life, does it add joy to your life? Can you work hard and still have joy along the way? Or are your thoughts sucking the joy out of you? Are you working hard and then you're like, Petra, that was good, but it really wasn't good enough. Or tomorrow, you did 99% of this right and made one little error and all you can focus on is that thing you didn't do right.
Yeah.
Let's change this, because it doesn't mean that you're not going to work hard and maybe even harder than you ever have. But if you can't do that and have enjoyment and some freedom along the way, what's your definition of success? Is it success at any cost, including your own well-being? I don't know. Is that a way to live? So the first bit is awareness. Second bit is kind of then moving out the clutter, because these thoughts take up so much space in our head, and different pieces of research are saying we have on average 60,000 thoughts a day. And 95% of those thoughts tend to be repetitive, but because they're such a part of our inner tape, we just don't even notice them. And then 85% of those, because of our genetic makeup, tend to be negative. Again, without judgment, just curiosity, going, we have to move out the negative to make room for the good. But then we have to put something into that space, because our brain doesn't like a vacuum. And if we leave it up to itself, something negative is going to come back in again. So then it's like refocusing to all the good of who you are, your strengths, your empathy, your curiosity, being a great listener, being a great friend, being a hardworking mom, being a wonderful colleague at work. There's so much goodness in you. What would happen if you spent a day working from that place? Bringing the best of you and celebrating the best of you. And this is where I see a lot of people struggle, Linda. They go, well, if I'm only focusing on what's good, then I'm going to start not being as successful. Trust me, you are so good at noticing everything that you're not good at. Focusing just a little on your goodness is not going to make you suddenly be sitting on the couch eating bonbons. And then it's like, how do we make this a sustainable habit? Because our brain, again, its default is the negative. So I say you have to work the work for the work to work. It's just like a muscle. It's just like your body. I can't go to the gym once a month and expect great things to happen, even though I have to admit I do that now and again. I'm like, okay, this doesn't happen, but we need to train and strengthen our mind, our resilience, our courage, our compassion, our self-resilience, just as we would our body. And that's habits, mini actions over time, consistency of cleaning out the negative thoughts, consistency of working from our strengths, consistency of putting our best self forward, consistency of loving ourselves fully, try that on for 24 hours. Consistency of looking at yourself in the mirror and not automatically latching onto a body part, my neck, that you don't like. Consistency of seeing the all of you. Consistency of acknowledging the amazing human being that you are right now, even if there is work to be done. There's work. I want to be a better writer, a better speaker, better at my podcast. But it doesn't mean that by wanting to do things differently negates all of who you are right in this moment. And I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, I mean, and we don't want to be a crappy speaker. Nobody wants to, you do want to have your speech to be great and perfect. Absolutely. So do you think perfectionism can be a good thing ever?
Great question. I think a lot of it depends on two things. One, what does the word mean to you? So for me personally, perfection has so many layers attached to it. I like to say I'm a passionist versus a perfectionist. So it doesn't mean I'm going to work just as hard. I'm going to work I just did my biggest keynote at Avon 2 weeks ago. I rehearsed and I rehearsed and I rehearsed. I did the slide. I mean, I wanted to put the work in, but then I could relax on stage and be in the moment. Versus
because you were well rehearsed. Yeah.
So it's not doing the work, but then it's like once you've done the work, let it go, be in the moment so you can be of service to your audience. So I think a lot of that's a very great question. Is perfection ever a good thing? I'd say it's individual for all of us, but I would say for those of you that think, oh, perfectionism is working really well for me in one area of my life, say it's working really well for you in your career, then revisit the other areas of your life, your relationship with yourself and your relationship with the ones that you love. Might be your partner, your family, your kids, or whatever. Because what I have seen is while we think it's working well in one area, there's other areas of our life that are suffering badly. For example, I see a lot of women who are very successful and they fight this idea that I want to be perfect at work, yet their self-care is horrible. Their relationships, even with their colleagues, is pretty gnarly because they become micromanagers. They're working from this fear-based idea that if I'm not perfect, if my team's not perfect, what does that say about me? So we just flip.
You're afraid you're going to lose your edge, so you're striving to be perfect.
Yeah, we're not losing the work. We're changing the foundation from which we're working from. We're changing the foundation from being this model of fear, of failure, into curiosity and being able to take risks and recognizing that I have to stretch myself to try something new. So it's kind of reframing the foundation. The work might be the same, if not more. So again, I think a lot of it, then I come back to that question. Does the work that you're doing and how you're doing the work, does that bring you joy? If the answer is yes, keep doing what you're doing. But if you're being super successful at work, but you're going to work and you feel like you can hardly breathe because you're so afraid of making a mistake, or you feel like an imposter, or you don't really belong at that seat of the success, I think maybe we could revisit this. Maybe it's just a conversation.
Well, don't you think a lot of us think that, you're a speaker, you're a writer, you're a performer. Don't you think a lot of us out there think, oh, well, you have to be perfect to do that. Who am I to do that? Now, isn't that tied into the whole perfectionist syndrome?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is why it often stops us from getting started. Because what we forget to see the 10,000 hours. And this is what happens with social media. We look at your podcast, we look at your performing, we look at you competing. That picture of you with your leg in the air, phenomenal. But it's not showing the 10,000 hours it took for you to get to that picture. So what it does is, I think perfection actually stops us from getting started a lot of the times. Because to be a great speaker, to be a great author, to be a great anything, requires you asking for help. It requires you learning skills that you probably don't have. It requires you to make mistakes. It requires you to fail.
Oh, yeah.
All the greatest people that you love and respect and admire have gone through the failures to get to where they are. So I think where perfect, I think, can be tricky, it doesn't allow us to get started because maybe your stuff that you want to put out in the world is perfect. But for you to get to perfect requires a lot of imperfect moments.
There you go, because you have to fail, right? How do we reframe failure and just fail forward? Because that's how you learn, right?
Yeah. And I read this somewhere and I use it a lot, that fail, F-A-I-L, first attempts in learning. First attempts in learning. And here's the thing, if you've never failed, this was another thing I was saying to a friend of mine. She goes, well, what about success? And I think if you've never failed, what you think success is, it's your midway. It's your mid-level success. You think you're successful now by being a perfectionist. I would invite you to consider that what you think success is, you haven't even begun to see where you could go. Because if you're afraid of failing, afraid of making mistakes, there's no way you've pushed yourself to your boundaries yet. Not even close.
Well, and isn't it somewhat of a release to just release yourself? Just release yourself from perfectionism, because it gets such a stranglehold on us, I think. And it's just almost like a relief.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's changed for me, Linda, is by letting go of this idea of perfect, it's allowed me to operate in the moment. Like right now, I am with you in this moment, whereas a few years ago.
Oh, right. You would have to have it all perfect, right?
I would be worrying about, is she going to ask me a question that I don't know the answer to? I'd be worrying about what's coming and then think about that answer that I just said. It wasn't really, I wish I'd said this. Oh my God, it's that constant judgment. Whereas like now, I still want to do really excellent work. Look, I wanted to show up and be my best self for you and your audience. But it's then once I've done all I can do, you let it go, because the best moments, actually some of my greatest interactions and most meaningful moments have happened when things have gone wrong. I'm not hoping for that, trust me.
Off
but if
the
it
cuff,
does
right?
happen, you just roll with it, because that's life,
Well, like Bruce Lee says, be like water, you can't go with the flow if you're a perfectionist. So I think
you're so busy trying to control the outcome. And I think that's the lie that perfection gives us. We think that by being perfect, we're going to be able to control the outcome. And
that's fear-based.
Exactly. And you know what? You can't. I don't care how perfect you are. You can have the perfect body, the perfect looks, and your relationship still might crumble. You can have the perfect showing up at your office, and they still might fire you. I mean, life doesn't operate on perfect. And I know for many years I thought, if I'm this, then this is going to happen. If I'm this, this is going to happen. Not so much. What you do is you do the best you can with what you have, and then you leave room for life to step in and bring the good stuff. And then when things don't go so well, because that tends to be the way life is, a little bit like interval training, you then recognize that you can ask for help and ask friends and, and sit with the not so great moments too. And it's not a reflection of who you are. It's just this thing called life.
Right. And I know so many this is such a great topic, such a great book. I know so many of us have suffered from perfectionism, or we do in some regard. We may not even recognize it. How can we recognize when we're suffering from perfectionism?
Great question. Again, I just think it comes down to, how are you feeling? Sitting with your feelings, because that's our feelings are our magic sauce. But it's often what we perceive as negative feelings, like embarrassment, shame, while lack of confidence is not a feeling, but this insecurity, the anxiety. If you're feeling constantly anxious, that's your body telling you something's not in alignment. when you're feeling stressed out, can you sit and go, what's under the stress? What feeling is under the stress? What feeling is under this fear? And I can't speak for you, but many times fear, anxiety, stress, if we sit with it long enough, it's this idea of enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. And again, if you sit with it long enough and something else pops up, that's good. But it's great to sit with these negative emotions so we can really explore them, work through them. We can't bypass them as much as we'd like to. And the cure and the remedy for the more negative feelings that we have, they don't come on a bumper sticker. I wish we could say, life, whatever. Life is what happens to you when you're busy making plans. Yes. And then life happens to you and your plans go out the window. We have to sit with the sadness, the grief, the loss of what we thought it was going to be our life, the loss of what you thought your next 3 months is going to be. It's changed. And grieve this hamstring and grieve the body that you thought you were going to have for the next year. And then when we can sit, maybe then we look under that grief. I'm not speaking for you, but let's just.
Oh, no, I hear you. 100%.
Then we sit under that, we go, well, maybe my fear is that maybe I'm not going to be as fit as people know me. And then maybe my identity of this rocks, which you are, it's so interesting. And look, I'll be 100% honest. Let's put it onto me for a moment. I'm going to a convention in Toronto. One of my favorite conventions, CanFit Pro. And now I speak at these events. I'm a speaker. I go in, I do lectures, I do keynotes, which means I can wear real clothing. I can wear Spanx versus spandex. It's fantastic. And there's a 25th anniversary step workout. I'm like, my first thing was, oh, I'm not as fit as when people used to take step with me. If that's going to be my driving thought when I step on stage, oh, am I fatter here? Am I a little bit less toned here? What a disservice I am giving to my audience. So when I go, if I can just, I'm going to rehearse my 32 counts because I pulled out my choreography. I'm going, it's like a foreign language. I haven't done it in so long. So I'm going to rehearse. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to wear my headband. And Reebok's been very kind. They're sending me a pair of the old princess high tops.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm going to represent, but then I just have to let it go. And is it about my body or is it about the experience I hope to share with these incredible people who are celebrating their lives, their story through step? And when it becomes about the ego, we're always going to suffer. And we're never going to do our best work.
Right. Yeah. And two, it's always better the way that you reframe that to be thinking of the people that you're there for.
Yeah.
And, I know your book, you have all these steps, like 21 steps to detox.
I have 21.
How many are there?
21.
And
okay. You have to fit into a nice little package, yeah.
Okay, I was like, oh no, I'm not.
Oh, no.
It is 21. Right. Okay. Oh, good. So 21 steps. What are some of the top steps that we could share with people? Just a few.
Well, I think the first one is noticing the noise. That's step number one, noticing the noise. We have so much static going on. Like I'm going to bring up, for example, like right then you said exactly the right thing, but I didn't give you the perfect, I misinterpreted what you were saying. And so for a second, I think you thought I made a mistake and your brain suddenly went, how many steps?
Well, I already made several today. So I was like, I'm really unhooking from perfectionism.
No, so our brain goes into this static. So the first thing is noticing the noise. Just like, oh my gosh, wow, that's interesting. And then this lens of curiosity. And then it's like, where does this come from? Because I say in the book, this is not about learning anything new. It's almost like unpeeling everything we've learned, that we've been told that we weren't this enough, we were not that enough, or maybe you were too much of this. Maybe you stood out too much when you were a child and you was keep small.
Shrink.
Absolutely. So then how do I then reclaim who I am? So it's kind of like, there's like three parts. The first part is actually unpeeling all these layers. And I wish, I was saying this in a conversation the other day, I wish, 'cause a lot of my work's in happiness around positive psychology. But unfortunately, to do the good work, we have to kind of unpeel all these layers that were put on us by mostly other people.
Right, because they're telling us who we should be.
Yeah, and often at an age when we're not old enough to go, oh, that was just their opinion of us. But we took their opinion of us as our truth of who we are. And more likely than not, Linda, someone might have said something to you in passing. They walked out the door. By the time they walked out the door, they've forgotten it.
Right.
And then we're carrying it for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
And then we put their opinion of them into then our inner critic's version, and we spin it into a frenzy. Oh my gosh. So we kind of have to,
scary place.
We kind of have to reverse that, unclean the mess, kind of put a little empty vessel. So that's part one. We're going to clean out the negative. And then part two is focusing on all that you are. Work from positive psychology, knowing your strengths, working from a place of forgiveness, working from compassion and empathy, taking a risk, learning how to fail, doing a do-over, going back and trying something that maybe didn't go perfectly, bringing a sense of playfulness back into your life. And then part three is like, how can we root this, like we said before, into habits that are sustainable? And the reason I broke it down, Linda, into like 21 bite-sized pieces is because we're already busy. And whether it's the lack of confidence or you want to, reclaim some joy, I don't want to make, like, as a recovering perfectionist, you might go, well, I want to do this perfectly too. So you might not find all the steps are applicable to you, but there's a methodology where you start here, you go here, you go here. And I wanted to do it in a way where it didn't interfere with your life, because there's a lot of great people out there. Some of my women I admire greatly, Brene Brown, Elizabeth Gilbert, a lot of great thought leaders telling us to stop worrying about being perfect. But it's not that easy.
It isn't. Do you have, besides your book, do you have a coaching program for people that might need a little more from you?
Thank you. That's actually going to come in next year, and this is not a paid, but thank you for that question. But if people do like the book, I'll send you the links. If they go to perfectiondetox.com in September and October and November, part of the bonuses are 3 free live masterclasses where we work the work together. Yeah. And then at the end of that next year, I'll be doing a lot more coaching around this. But I just want people to get familiar with the book. See the areas where they go, oh, that's me. Feel that sense of joy, without this whole idea, just becoming familiar with the work. And again, in the fall, once they've read the book, we then work it together and see what questions came up, what maybe I could have explained in a different way to relate to the audience. And then, in 2019, there'll be a lot of different ways to work with me on this material.
Wow, I really love that. I love that so much. I have appreciated this conversation so much. You've brought so much value today to our listeners. And I just want to acknowledge you so much for being such a fierce force in the world, the fitness industry, and just, I think, waking up to your own perfectionism so you can help all of us with ours. I think this is going to be a huge success. I'm so excited for you. I can see this book really going places and going so far. So I just want to commend you on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the gift of your time in this conversation. And, often people say, what would you want people to know? And I just say, just remember that the world would rather have your imperfect voice, idea, imperfect mommydom, imperfect workout than your perfect silence. And we're all in this together.
I love that. What are 3 simple truths? They can be funny or wise that you can leave with our listeners today.
Ooh, 3 simple truths. I'm not sure if the word simple and truth goes together, but let's say 3 simple truths. 1, you are enough right now. And I think that's the hardest truth to own. That's why it's so hard. So isn't it interesting that a simple truth is you are enough? That's one we have to own. You are enough. And that the part B of that is there might be work that you want to do, but the simple truth is right now who you are, wherever you are, in the body that you are enough. Simple truth number 2. Oh gosh, let me think. Simple truth number 2. Let me think. Fear, this is not mine, but it's really helped me. This is by Pema Chodron. Fear, when you reframe it, is a natural reaction. You're getting closer to the truth. So I like that. It helps me reframe fear. When you feel afraid, it means you're about to do something that really matters.
Ooh.
So you can't do something that really matters without fear. So
okay.
Yeah. But it helps you reframe that. And then 3. It really is. I mean, we hear this a lot. I think here's another truth. The very thing that you think you need to hide is quite possibly the very thing that will make you soar.
Oh, I love that.
The very thing you're trying to hide might be the very thing you need to talk about. Not therapy. I don't mean that. You got to figure it out. For example, my anxiety about perfection, I could have easily have not talked about this, but I never felt more. They say you have a job, a career, or a calling. This to me, Linda, is my calling because I know the pain. I know what it feels like to live on one side of perfection and what it feels like to live on the other. And it's not that easy. I kind of do this, sometimes I'm on the good side. But often I really do believe the very thing that you want to keep hidden, if you shine a light on that and then you decide to do the work, and then share your work with those around you, it might be the greatest gift you'll ever give to this planet and the universe.
Oh, that is so true. So, so true. Wow. So I have really enjoyed this today. Where can we find you on social media and get your book?
Okay, well, my name, Petra Kolber, P-E-T-R-A-K-O-L, B as in boy, E-R, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those are kind of the 3 places I am not perfect at, but Facebook tends to be my jam, but I'm on all of those. And then for the book and to get the pre-sale bonuses and the bonuses, perfectiondetox.com. And you can read a little bit about the book. You can order it from any like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Indigo. And then don't forget to go back and put your receipt in. So then, like Linda mentioned, we're going to be doing master classes together in September, October, November. We get to work the work so then it can work.
And everyone out there listening, you could leave some questions in the live feed. Petra might come on and answer them.
Sure, absolutely.
And let her know how much you enjoyed this interview. Please share because you care. And let's all go out and grab a copy of the Perfectionist Detox. I said it again. Perfection.
You don't know. Listen, just so you know, I had I was doing a podcast yesterday, and I think because most people do think perfectionist, and the podcast was up as so. No, it's all in it together.
The Perfection Detox. Now you guys are going to really remember what it's called.
This was deliberate.
Well, I could have cheated and looked at it, but I can only see half of your cover for some reason on my screen.
Before we go, because I think
there we go.
So pretty.
It is gorgeous. I love. I love the colors. Love the cover.
With that. I got super lucky on that. This is the perfect cover.
That is awesome. I do love it. Well, you all know what time it is. It's time to be who you are instead of who others think you should be. Go out and do something great. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the Sisterhood of Sweat.